members of the Tea Party movement. All this comes as the races are starting to heat up in the midterm elections. Scott Stanzel is a former deputy press secretary for President George W. Bush. Kirsten Powers is a New York Post columnist and a Fox News political analyst. Welcome to you both. And Kirsten, let me start with you. Whose problems are worse here? The Democrats, who are suddenly scandal-ridden and whose poll numbers are lousy, or the Republicans, who are really without a national leader and who are now having problems and losing some traditional members to the Tea Party loyalists?
I think both parties actually are in pretty bad shape. The fact is that Democrats, since they're in power, are going to probably feel it more when the midterm elections come. But I think if for somehow it was reversed and it was the Republicans that were in power, people would just be turning against them. I think a lot of Republicans think that it's that they have better ideas and that Americans are happy with them because they're stopping the health care plan, when in fact I just think it's an overall anti-government, anti-Washington feeling in the country. And what that means is the people in power are going to feel it hit the hardest.
That whole anti-Washington thing, Scott, I mean, a lot of the Tea Party loyalists who I have spoken to, they don't like either party.
Yeah, there's no question that there's a lot of discomfort with what's going on in Washington, but I would say that the Democrats are in far worse shape given the fact that most of these Tea Party activists, the vast majority of them, are really uncomfortable with the out-of-control spending that we've seen in Washington. They're adamantly opposed to this health care takeover. So when you add in the ingredients of ethical scandals that we've seen out of the Democratic Party recently, you have a political jambalaya that most people aren't going to want to consume in November, and that's going to be a real problem for Democrats who have a tenuous hold on a majority because many of their members are actually representing districts that were either won by President Bush or by John McCain. And so they're looking out for their own situation, and they're in a tough spot right now with this health care debate.
Kirsten, what's the talk inside Democratic circles? When you go out for a beer or a glass of Chardonnay, whatever you like, with your Democratic friends, what do they say about the Tea Party movement and the impact the movement is likely to have not only on Republicans, but on Democrats, too?
I have to tell you, I don't think a lot of Democrats really are that worried about the Tea Party movement per se. I think what they're more concerned about is just the general mood of the country, and that they're very unhappy. That I think people are very unhappy with the way, even Obama supporters, a lot of them are very unhappy with the way they've handled health care. That you can have criticisms coming from all directions, but it just wasn't handled the way that I think people thought it should have been handled, and they feel like he sort of wasted his political capital. So, I think people are worried. I think they're worried about what's going to happen with the Democratic Party, worried what's going to happen with Obama, and but I also think that people can see that the Republicans are, in the same way the Democrats have done in the past, I think they're overestimating their power. They're overestimating that the American people support them, because they don't support them. They don't support anybody, actually.
Yeah, I want to know what Scott thinks about that, because, people are not jumping up and down for Mitch McConnell, with all due respect for John Boehner. I mean, what do you think about the midterms? I mean, this is a president who is going full speed ahead with his domestic agenda, health care especially, showing the kind of moral certitude that George W. Bush got a lot of credit for from Republicans when he went ahead no matter what the polls were saying. What do you think happens in November?
Well, I think the winds of change are blowing, and people are unhappy with what's going on in Washington. But I think it would be wrong to say that either party is held in high standing by voters. Certainly, politicians aren't looked upon favorably, but Republicans in recent polls have had 7 or 8 point advantage in generic ballots for who's going to control Congress. So I think a lot of the voters out there, which are signified by some of those Tea Party activists, are simply just unhappy with what's going on in Washington, particularly on the spending side. So I think Democrats, when they start debating this health care bill and they move aggressively against the will of the people, which the people aren't supportive of this Obama plan, when they move aggressively against that and show their disconnect from voters, they're going to have something to pay for in November.
All right, I've got 1 minute left, and I want to try to get one more question to each of you. Kirsten, you first. Is the president making a calculated move here by pushing forward despite the polls on health care? Is he trying to lose his majority in Congress so that he has something to run against in 2012? I hate to be so cynical.
No, I think that they've made a calculation that to have put all this capital into this and to actually not be able to pass health care with such a commanding majority would make him look so weak that they've calculated it would be worse to not pass something than to pass something. I really think that's what's going on.
And Scott, let me ask you finally about our traditional two-party system that we have had in this country for so long. Are the two parties broad enough to make everybody, every voter in this country happy, or are we headed towards some major change?
No, I think the parties are weakened today, and I don't think that's a bad thing. I think you see candidates that are going to be more representative potentially of their districts. I think as people have more access to information and social media and other things proliferate, the parties are weakened. And honestly, I don't know that that's a bad thing when people in Congress are going to be more apt to follow the will of their constituents and less so follow the will of their party.
Scott Stanzel and Kirsten Powers, thank you both. Nice to see you. Thanks for coming in on a Saturday.
Thank you.
That's very good. Very interesting.
Oh, thanks.
That was pretty good.
What do you got?